Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Whoops and I was one of the lucky few that was invited to the Endwalker media tour. In this video, I'll be showing the recordings of the hands-on demo where I was able to play the new jobs, the new job changes, test out the new dungeon, Tower of Zot, and explore some of the new areas, including Thavnair, Garlemald, and Old Charlian. Before we get any further, I need to let you guys know that this is all developmental footage. It's subject to final adjustments and changes before it goes live. So do keep that in mind as we progress. I'll be giving my general thoughts and impressions over everything I was able to play in the short amount of time I had with the demo. I'm a Dragoon main that loves raiding, so I hope I can offer a bit of meaningful insight. On screen and in the description are full timestamps for each portion of content if you'd like to skip around and see your favorite things first. Just a little disclaimer before we get started with the job footage. We were playing this demo over a remote connection, so it was a bit laggy. Therefore, it made it kind of hard to check for animation times and stuff like that. This also isn't meant to be a guide by any means, rather just some quick thoughts over gameplay that'll be a little more in-depth and visualized than the job trailer from the live letter. And without further ado, let's hop into the footage. So we're gonna go ahead and get started first with Dragoon, my personal favorite. Sorry, I'm a little biased. So right off the bat, one of the obvious changes, there are charges on Spine Shatter Dive and Life Surge now, up to 2 each. Sonic Thrust, your second GCD in your melee combo, now finally grants Power Surge. That's your damage increase buff that you could normally only get from Disembowel. I've been asking for this change for a very long time. There's also new upgraded versions of our combo finishers on single target. So Chaos Thrust turns into Chaotic Spring at level 86, and Full Thrust now turns into Heaven's Thrust at level 86 as well. There's a new ability at level 90 on my F key there. It's called Wormwind Thrust, which you can use inside or outside life windows. In order to use that, you need 2 First Minds' Focus, which you get 1 of each time you use a Draconian Fire ability, Raiden Thrust or the new Draconian Fury. Previously, you had to hit the positionals correctly on Wheeling Thrust and Fang and Claw in order to get Raiden Thrust. Now, even if you miss those positionals, you will still get Draconian Fire. Battle Litany got moved down to 2 minutes, just like Dragon Sight is now, and Lance Charge got moved down to 60 seconds. This is all going to be really good for aligning with 2 minutes, so I really like what they did there. A big thing for Dragoon players in the past was figuring out when they should go into a life window and when they should skip it. If you didn't know, whenever Dragoon does 2 Mirage Dives, the next Gear Skoggle that they use will send them into their Life of the Dragon window, which is their burst. But if they use Gear Skoggle before that second Mirage Dive, they can choose to skip and delay that by 30 seconds. So with these new buff timings and whatnot, I tested out both. There's still going to be some number changes, I'm pretty sure, so I'm not exactly sure what's going to be more optimal. Surely it'll come in handy still when you're going into different fights with different kinds of uptimes and boss jumping away and whatever, team composition and whatnot. But so far from what I played, I think Dragoon is going to be in a great place like it always has been. I do like this Wormwind's Thrust ability. I was a little worried at the job action trailer, thinking that it might possibly be something that you could only use in your life window, but it's not the case, and it actually ends up being pretty comfy in your rotation. Blood of the Dragon, that button that you had to keep up for that buff to make your jumps do more damage, just is a trait now. It's always on, which also solves another problem that Dragoon saw a lot in older ultimate fights at level 70, was that in order to get 3 Nastrins out underneath your life window, you had to have used Fang and Claw or Wheeling Thrust right before you went into your life window. Otherwise, your life window would only be sub 20 seconds, so you'd only be able to use it twice because of the 10-second cooldown. But now that it's a trait, you automatically have a 30-second life window every time, which is super nice. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the changes they made for my main job, so I'm pretty excited for Endwalker. Just hope I don't get myself killed as much with jumps, but anyways. Next up, we're going to take a look at Samurai, another melee DPS. So Samurai got a couple of changes and additions to its kit. It feels great. It has 2 charges now on Meikyo and on Tsubame. There's an AoE Shoha, and there's a AoE ability to get your Blue Sen now. Basically a Yukikaze AoE ability. The big question from the job trailer was, what was that huge ability that we all got to see? It's called Ogi Namikiri, and you get a buff every time you use Iki Shoten now that lets you use that ability. It works just like Madare, does a lot of damage, looks really cool. Samurai is looking like it's winning. Next up, we're going to take a look at Ninja. So right off the bat, one of the cool things about the new Ninja is they have an ability that just gives them their Huton buff without having to use any of their mudras. It's really nice. It's a GCD, and you just pop it, you get 60 seconds of Huton. Very nice. There is another new ability that you can cast every time you use your Bunshin, which is basically like a new wind AoE that your shadows cast for you when you're in Bunshin. There's a new double follow-up gap closer whenever you use a Raiton. It's called Forked Raiju and Fleeting Raiju. You get each one of them one after another. It's really nice. And as you can see, you can go super far away with it. Super cool. There is a change to how Doton interacts when you do your AoE combo. There's an extra little explosion damage that happens every time you use your 2-part AoE rotation, which is nice. Also, Dream Within a Dream is no longer a 2-part combo. You get Assassinate first at level 40, and it upgrades into Dream Within a Dream later. Ninja feels good. Looks awesome. All right, now for the part I know a lot of you are here for. We're going to talk about Reaper, the new melee DPS. So the basic rotation goes like this. You use your 1-2-3 combo, Slice, Waxing Slice, and Infernal Slice to build Soul Gauge, the red bar. You then spend that Soul Gauge on abilities that give you a Soul Reaver stack. These are Bloodstalk and Grim Swathe, which can only give you 1. There's also Gluttony, which gives you 2. You then spend these Soul Reaver stacks on abilities that give you Shroud Gauge, the blue bar. These are Gibbet and Gallows, which are flank/rear spenders, and Guillotine, which is an AoE spender. Once you have enough Shroud Gauge, you can transform and let your Reaper avatar take over. This is essentially your big burst window. You get 5 stacks or uses of Lemur's Shroud. I know I just butchered that name. Which you can spend on upgraded, faster versions of your Soul Reaver abilities. And then you spend your last remaining stack to cast Communio, a high potency AoE. Some other things to mention. It has an ability called Soul Sow, which you can cast instantly outside of combat, but it takes a long time while in combat, so it could be used during downtime. When cast, this turns into a high potency AoE that you can use as part of your opener or reopener. It has a debuff that you apply to increase your personal damage dealt to that enemy that lasts up to 60 seconds total, but it's only 30 seconds every time you use it. You apply these with either a single target ability or an AoE ability that you have. It also has that cool teleport move that I'm sure you've seen by now. It can be used either forwards or backwards with a return. It also has a personal shield that, if consumed, will apply a small regen to you and your party members within 15 yalms. Overall, I think this job is surprisingly simple and also really, really fun. I actually am going to play this a lot. Next up, we'll go ahead and take a look at Monk. So Monk saw some pretty big changes with Endwalker. They have a new ability to go along with Brotherhood and Riddle of Fire. They have Riddle of Wind now, which decreases the amount of time in between auto attacks. So you'll auto attack really fast when you press it. There are charges on PB now that allow you to basically gather stickers every time you go into PB. There's 3 different kinds of stickers, and there's a bunch of, basically, I like to think of them as like Monk Mudras, if you're familiar with Ninja. Every time you complete one of those blitz moves is what they're called, you get either the dark orb or the light orb, and then when you have both of them, and then you use your PB again, the next blitz that you'll have will be like a big, huge ender kind of blitz. It's really nice. It also has a new gap closer that kind of works like an instant transmission. Doesn't necessarily do damage, but it lets you target allies and enemies, so you can teleport next to them. Overall, it flows really well, and it's super fun to play. I would recommend you go watch Drax's video if you want to know more about Monk. He probably went into a lot of detail on how it works. Next, we're going to go ahead and swap over to the fizzed ranged classes, starting with Bard. So historically, I haven't been a super big fan of Bard for a couple of reasons, but the changes that they implemented actually may make me a fan now. The song timings are now all 45 seconds, which is cool. The dots are also now 45 seconds, so they line up with each other. Every time you play a song, you get a little sticker there on your gauge. You can see those are called codas. When you get 3 codas, or even when you have 1, you can press the new ability Radiant Finale, which increases damage dealt by self and nearby party members. Basically, it's like Old Divination from Astro. There was an upgrade to the AoE ability Quick Knock, which looks super cool. There is also now a follow-up ability to Apex Arrow when you use it at 80 gauge or more, called Blast Arrow. Pretty fun. And I'm sure you've noticed by now, there's also charges on Bloodletter. Overall, it feels a lot more comfy to play. I'll probably be checking out some Bard later in Endwalker. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at Dancer. So Dancer, for the most part, didn't get too many changes to how it works, but it did get a lot of new abilities. One of Dancer's biggest moves, Technical Step, now has a follow-up attack called Tilana. It's an additional 360 potency AoE ability that also refreshes your standard finish. Pretty nice. Also now using Flourish and Devilment allow you to use 2 new abilities. One of them is called Fan Dance 4. The other one is called Starfall Dance. Both of them look great. There's also a finisher now to Improvisation, which allows you to give your party a shield. Overall, I really like what they did with Dancer, and it looks like it's going to continue to be really good. Last but not least, for the FFXIV ranged players is going to be Machinist, my personal favorite. So right off the bat, one of the biggest changes is now they have 2 charges of Reassemble, which is super nice. There's a new ability called Chainsaw. It functions pretty closely to Drill. Using Chainsaw on your opener now gives you enough gauge to summon Queen during your opener. I failed to do it here because I suck and I'm bad, but you know, it's possible now. Your AoE button got upgraded into a shotgun, and Queen gets a new cool finisher where she Chidoris the enemy. Looks awesome. Can't wait to play more Machinist. Now we're going to go ahead and switch over to casters, starting with Black Mage. Now forgive me, I am by no means a good Black Mage player, but I tried to do my best to show off some of the new abilities here. Those new abilities being High Fire 2 and High Blizzard 2, so the 2s for Fire and Blizzard got changed. There's a new ability called Amplifier, and there's a new ability called Paradox, which is like a mix between Fire and Ice. Paradox refreshes the duration of your Astral Fire and gives a 40% chance to grant Fire Starter. Amplifier automatically gives you 1 Polyglot on a 2-minute cooldown. High Fire 2 and High Blizzard 2 grant their Astral buff and remove the opposite. Other than the few new abilities and the Sharpcast charges, Black Mage seems pretty much the same to me, but I'm sure a pro like Sfia will break it down much better than I can. Now here's one that I know a lot of people are excited for. Larry. Summoner. So Summoner got pretty much completely reworked. Now you only summon your Carbuncle, and then as you rotate through Bahamut and Phoenix in between, you also get to invoke Garuda, Ifrit, and Titan. Each one of those different phases is started by using those little fruit gummy looking things. They're actually gems. And every single phase has different abilities that you can cast with different effects. For example, Ifrit has a gap closer on it, which is pretty cool. I know a few of you Summoner mains are probably looking around for Devotion on the hotbar right now, and the answer is it just got changed into Searing Light. It's now a 2-minute damage buff that increases damage dealt by self and nearby party members by 3% for 30 seconds. Yes, it still works with the pet AI. RIP. Overall, I like what they did with Summoner a lot. It feels a lot better to play now, and it feels a lot more clean. Can't wait to actually give this a real shot now. And finally, we're going to take a look at Red Mage for the casters. Now, in my rushed state while I was trying to record all these videos, I actually forgot to record a full rotation for Red Mage, which is funny because that's one of my favorite jobs in this game. So Red Mage ended up getting a couple of changes. They have charges now on Acceleration and Core, which is nice. Embolden is no longer a single damage type increase. It just increases the damage of nearby party members by 10%, which is amazing. Also, Manification no longer doubles your mana. Instead, it just gives you 50 and 50, which is exactly what you need to perform one melee combo. There's a new follow-up to Scorch, which is called Resolution. It's a 750 potency AoE ability, which is awesome. Also, Ver Holy, Ver Flare, and Scorch are now AoE abilities, as well as their new ability, Magic Barrier, which is a 10% magic raid-wide mitt, and also a 5% increased healing for party members. And that's about it. Red Mage is awesome. Who would have guessed? Now we're going to go ahead and switch over to tanks, starting with Warrior. So Warrior functionally pretty much works the same now. There is a cool change right off the bat that you might have just noticed. Your Gap Closer now has 3 charges and doesn't cost any gauge. You may have also noticed that there is a new replacement for Raw Intuition that is now called Bloodwetting. So Bloodwetting basically works as a personal nascent while also applying the new effects that nascent also grants. Stem the Flow and Stem the Tide, which is a short damage reduction by 10% and a small barrier for about 30 seconds. Your inner release window now isn't just a timer. It works off of charges, so you can get 3 Fell Cleaves or Decimates, and then end it with the new ability, Primal Rend, which is that big Beyblade spin AoE attack that it has. There is also a new spender for your upheaval timer, which is called Origeny. It's basically just an AoE upheaval. Warrior looks super awesome, and I'm actually going to be playing this one a lot. Now we're going to take a look at Dark Knight. So Dark Knight got 3 new abilities technically. That's Oblation, Shadowbringer, and Salt and Darkness. Oblation is simply just a 10% mitt on yourself or a party member. Kind of works like TBN, but it's also different from TBN. Shadowbringer is a line AoE that works a lot like Flood. You can use that whenever you have Darkside on, and it has a maximum of 2 charges. Salt and Darkness is a new ability that you can use every time you place a Salted Earth. It's an extra burst of damage dealt to anything standing inside the Salted Earth. Simple changes for Dark Knight, but, you know, it's still good. Really wish they would have changed the way that Blood Weapon works, like for charges. They did end up adding charges onto Delirium too, just like Felcleave in a release on Warrior. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at my favorite tank, personally, Gunbreaker. Gunbreaker got some awesome changes. They can have 3 cartridges now instead of just 2. There is a continuation attack attached to Burst Strike now, so it's a little more fun to press. And there is now a 2-gauge spender called Double Down. They've also changed the Gnashing Fang combo to be on 1 button instead of on 3 to save you some hotbar space. We've got that new ability that upgrades Heart of Stone into Heart of Corundum. And there's charges on Aurora. Looks real nice. Now we're going to take a look at the job of the expansion, Paladin. Right off the bat, there's 3 big changes. Sheltron got a big upgrade. Sheltron can now give you a gradual heal over time, which you could potentially use to pop Veil yourself instead of a Clemency, which could be pretty cool. Spirits Within gets upgraded to Expiation. I hope I said that right. And there is also now, instead of a single cast for Confiteor, there are 4 casts for Confiteor. Have fun crit directing all those, Zeph. I hope you enjoy. Now we'll go ahead and switch over to the healers, starting with Astro. Astro got quite a few changes. The biggest one right off the bat is that now Divination doesn't require seals to use. You can just pop it whenever, every 2 minutes. There is now a charge on draw, which is cool. And then it's got 2 new big abilities. One of them is called Exaltation. It reduces damage taken by self or a target party member by 10% for 8 seconds. And then at the end of the duration, it also does a 500 potency cure. And then the big new ability that they got, Macrocosmos, deals unaspected damage to all nearby enemies with a potency of 250 for the first enemy, 50% for all remaining enemies, and grants you the macro buff to self and all nearby party members. So while you have that buff, 50% of the damage that you take during that duration will be healed at the end of that buff. So I'm thinking it might be possible for an Astro to much more easily solo heal a Living Dead. Lord and Lady of Crowns got a little bit of a change. You still draw them with Minor Arcana. Lady of Crowns is an AoE heal. Lord of Crowns is an AoE damage. There's also another new ability called Astrodyne. I'll go ahead and just throw that up on screen so you can read it. You can also now only redraw every card once. I'm liking how Astro's looking. It no longer has Diurnal or Nocturnal Sect. It's just going to be a regen healer, and it looks like it's going to be pretty dang good at that. Now we're going to go ahead and switch over to Scholar. A lot of people were memeing on Scholar at the job action trailer because it looked like all they got was a combat peloton, but I think it's pretty good. So that new Expedite ability, that one that makes them run really fast, is also a 10% party mitt, which is super good. And they have another new button that you can press that's basically like an AoE Thrill of Battle. I really wish they would have removed or fixed the pet AI on this job, but other than that, it's still going to be pretty solid. It has tools for everything. I'm kind of excited to play more of this. Now we are going to take a look at White Mage. White Mage got an upgrade to all of its damage abilities. It also got charges for Divine Benison and Thin Air. One of my predictions was actually correct. So Thin Air, the way that it works is they have 2 charges, but it only counts for the next spell cast. They've received a new ability called Aqua Veil, which reduces damage taken by a party member or self by 15% for 8 seconds. It's pretty huge. That's on a 60-second cooldown. And they also got that new ability called Lily Bell, which drops the turret, basically, for healing. Taking damage expends stacks from the Lily Bell, and then at the end of the duration, the Lily Bell will just heal everybody. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the new healer, Sage. And let me tell you right off the bat, I think this job is going to be really, really strong when it comes out. So Sage has a lot to it, but we're going to start with the job gauge. Adder's Gall is accumulated once every 20 seconds, even when outside of combat, up to a maximum of 3. These can be used on things like, and forgive me, I'm going to butcher all of these pronunciations, Druochol, Carachol, Ixochol, and Tarochol. Druochol is a single target 600 potency heal, feels very similar to a Scholar Lustrate. Carachol is a big bubble shield that gives reduced damage taken and gets a regen at later levels. Ixochol is a party-wide 400 potency heal, and Tarochol is a single target heal, 600 potency, that also gives a 10% damage reduction buff to whoever it's cast on. All of these Addersgall abilities give a partial mana refund. The second half of the job gauge holds charges of Addersting, which are granted anytime a shield you apply to someone is broken. Addersting charges allow you to use your cool damaging abilities, Toxicon and Toxicon 2. It just upgrades later at a level. One of the main mechanics of Sage is its ability Cardia. Think of it almost as Dancer's closed position, but with healing instead. Basically, you select your Cardia partner, and then, when you cast damaging spells on enemies, you will heal yourself and your partner for a small amount. It's pretty nifty. The next class-specific mechanic is the ability to augment certain skills using Eucrasia. You have your normal healer GCDs, such as Damage, Heal, and AoE Heal, but using Eucrasia beforehand augments these into the Eucrasian version of these spells, slightly altering what they do. Dosis, the damage spell, becomes a dot rather than a normal attack, while the two healing actions, Diagnosis and Prognosis, adds a shield to whoever they hit. If the Eucrasian Diagnosis, the single target augmented heal, crits, it also gives like an additional catalyze like Scholar gets. Now let's talk about what I think is one of the most interesting skills on this new job. Haima and Panhaima are skills that do not heal on cast, but erect a pretty weak shield around the target. The meat of this skill comes from the buff that is applied. Basically, the tiny shield has 5 stacks. Each time it's broken, it reapplies and eats 1 stack from the buff. The buff lasts for 30 seconds, and when it expires, all remaining stacks of the buff are converted into a heal equaling the amount it would have shielded for. In total, this can make for either a shield with a total potency of 750, or if the shields don't get broken at all, a heal with a potency of 750. As you can guess, Panhaima is the same, but applies to the entire party. There are so many other buttons this job has that do a bunch of other things, so here's a rapid fire. PHYS is an AoE regen on a 60-second cooldown. Phlegma is an AoE attack around a target. It holds 2 charges with a 45-second recharge. Soteria boosts the amount of healing your Cardia partner receives from the damage you do for 10 seconds. Icarus is a gap closer that works very similarly to Ethereal Manipulation, but it works on enemies too. Dyscrasia is your AoE spam, basically Scholar's Ottervore. Zoe is a 90-second buff that doubles your next heal. Pepsis is an ability that will consume any shields that you have on the party and heal them. Rhizomata is a free Addersgall charge on a button. Holos is an instant AoE cure. Think of White Mage as a size, but without the mana return. Krasis is a healing potency buff. And last but certainly not least, Numa is a super cool line AoE that deals a bunch of damage. It also does an AoE heal at the same time. This class is crazy, and I can't wait to test it out more once Endwalker comes out. I think it's going to be really, really strong. And that's not all, but some of the interesting job changes that I've found in Endwalker. Now, I just want to remind you all that all of this is subject to change. This is all developmental footage, and it could change as it comes out, but this is a good early first peek at what the changes are going to be. All right, now that we've taken a look at some of the job changes we can expect going into Endwalker, we're going to take a look at the dungeon they allowed us to play in the demo. This is your spoiler warning now. If you'd like to go to the next part, here's a timestamp. Go ahead, I'll wait. Okay, so this is the Tower of Zot. It's a level 81 dungeon, which I assume will be the first one of the expansion. It sinks us down to level 82, and I was trying to use the newly updated trust system, which was supposedly supposed to have better AI. However, I'm not super familiar with it because I don't really use trust, but I wasn't going to pass up on the opportunity to take in Estinian, my boy. Alfie was on Sage, and Tancred was on Gunbreaker, of course. This dungeon takes us through a large tower, I know, it's surprising, filled with all kinds of tempered Imperial enemies, Zot enemies, and as we were teased before, the Magus Sisters. Overall, the mechanics weren't anything super new or shocking, but it was pretty fun. I enjoyed the combination fight at the end specifically, which was surprisingly difficult, combining the previous boss fights all into one against all 3 sisters at the same time. I'll go ahead and shut up now and roll a few bits of footage of highlights in my Trust run on Dragoon, my Reaper run, and on my Sage run. I was playing with Drac, by the way. Enjoy! So after I was able to record all my footage for the jobs and record a few runs of the dungeon, I wanted to just take a look around at the different areas we were able to access. This included Garlemald, Thavnair, and Old Sharlayan, which is, I guess, going to be like the new hub for the expansion. Let's start with Old Sharlayan. So this area was really, really pretty. I really liked the different weather patterns that it had, especially when it was snowing. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Greece, mixed with maybe a little bit of the Pacific Northwest. I love the foresty, kind of ancient vibe. It's very tranquil. I was also able to find a certain pair of twins estate. Kind of interesting. It was also near a neighborhood named Journey's End. The library was super cool, and I liked the dock area. All kinds of cool buildings. It's gonna be nice to hang out around here, for sure. Now let's shoot on back to Thavnair. When we were watching the Endwalker live letter, I was kind of joking around and saying that Thavnair reminded me of Brazil. And honestly, it kind of looks, I don't know, like it has like a South American kind of vibe to it. It looks awesome. I love the vibrant colors. It switches between a little bit of deserty vibes and also like a jungle vibe at the same time. There's all kinds of cool structures. Really, really like this area. Now let's take a look at Garlemald, which was honestly kind of scary. So I teleported in and found this train station with people, I don't know, fighting for their lives on the floor or something. They didn't look too good. I popped up and I took a look around and wow, it looked interesting, to say the least. I really, really enjoyed the music in this area specifically, and kind of like that cool, quiet, snowy vibe. It's ominous. As I was floating around a little bit, I saw some cars and I had to do a double take. I was like, what? Cars? What are these doing here? Pretty cool. Looked around a little bit more, and then I found this interesting little encampment with all of the different grand companies there. The whole alliance, baby. There was this interesting little map room that I found, and I think there will be some main story quests in here if I had to guess. These are just a few of the new areas. I wish we could have seen the moon, but I don't know. That'll probably be the last area. As my little exploring mission was wrapping up, we were just about out of time on the demo, so I took a moment to just sit down and reflect. I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV for a little over 6 years now. At the start, I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I wasn't sure if I would enjoy the game, but here I am. This game means a whole lot to me, so being invited to the media tour was a big deal. I was honored and really excited that I was able to see some early stuff and share it with you guys. It's been a very long journey for my Warrior of Light, and I'm really looking forward to this quote-unquote season finale we're about to have in Endwalker. I'm sure I'll get emotional, as will many others, so let's cherish these next coming months together. We can do it. I want to take a moment to thank a few people who have really made my Final Fantasy XIV experience even better since I've started. First off, Soma, Anubis, and Shiny, thank you so much for teaching me how to raid. They would literally stay up at night and just teach me how the raids worked, teach me how my job worked, and molded me into a pretty fine raider, I'd say. I'm always going to remember my first raid days. And I'll also never forget that time y'all laughed at me for thinking I had to use leg sweep in my Dragoon rotation. To Pharaoh and Zeph, thank you for giving me the opportunity to raid in a hardcore setting. I know y'all took a risk with taking such a new raider, but because of the experience you guys gave me, I've been able to raid with all kinds of new groups and meet all kinds of new friends. That drive to raid and to improve has been really good for me mentally over these last few years. It's boosted my confidence a ton. It's really racked my brain and made me excited to get up and play the game, especially with the oversleepers, are static. I'm looking forward to the next raids here and to more and more years of playing together afterwards. The Final Fantasy community in general, thank you so much for being so supportive of not just me, but yourselves, honestly. We are a diverse and amazing community that I'm happy to be a part of. Let's continue to be positive and welcoming to our new friends that we meet in Endwalker. To my community specifically, thank you so much for supporting me in all my endeavors. I know I'm all over the place with the things I play, but I used to struggle to find things that were interesting to me, and in turn to give something interesting for you to watch. I really think I've found my home in Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm glad many of you are here for it. I'll continue doing my best to be somebody that you can all be proud to support. To Square Enix, thank you again for inviting me to the Endwalker Media Tour. I was intimidated at first with the responsibility, but I'm really glad I took the offer. I had an amazing time, and I am so glad I was able to share this awesome experience. I'm looking forward to collaborating again in the future. Wink wink, nudge nudge, hey, haha. Mr. Yoshi P, wanna be friends? Welp, this is about the end of the Media Tour video. It was an awesome experience, and I am now even more impatient with waiting for Endwalker release. They had to literally drag this demo out of my hands. I would not let it go. They had to kick me off. I hope you all enjoyed the video. And remember, again, all of what you saw today was developmental footage, developmental numbers. It's all subject to change when it releases. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in Endwalker.